Still live from Blackpool, NXT UK proves tonight to Raw to SmackDown that you can do a screwy finish of a good match that doesn't ruin the match. Let's talk about it. For the first time in about 3 weeks, what's going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, here with your NXT UK review for January 23rd, 2019. Still live from Blackpool, still live from the site of NXT UK TakeOver Blackpool. It's all the fallout, it's all the good and fun times. Back to doing it while NXT UK is back to being once a week. Let's hope that continues. I'm going to give a quick shout. Later on tonight, Kristen, Guapo, and myself are going to be doing the pay-per-view pick 'em for NXT TakeOver Phoenix. I was going to say UK in there again, but it's not. As well as the Royal Rumble, so please stay tuned for that. You guys know the drill. Give me your picks, rank your picks. We're going to keep score on Twitter on the night, and it's going to be really, really good. Also, stay tuned at the end. We're going to talk about the Destiny show that I'm going to be talking a lot about in the next little while. It's Destiny and Blackcraft present The Ritual, which is happening February 23rd on iPay-per-view on the Fight TV app, so stay tuned for that as well. But let's talk about UK NXT tonight. Starts off with a video highlight package, which I typically thought was going to be like the regular NXT after a takeover. It's a lot of highlights from the show. But no, it specifically deals with Jordan Devlin and Travis Banks, the match we didn't get at TakeOver, because obviously Travis Banks was taken out. He was injured. I don't know whether it's kayfabe or whether he was dealing with something else, by Jordan Devlin, and Jordan Devlin at the very last second was given Finn Balor as an opponent. And how fucking fantastic was that match? Let's be real for a second. But after what we see tonight, I can't help but think that in a way the crowd was ripped off, and this is absolutely no offense meant to Finn Balor, but in a way the UK crowd was ripped off, and in a way I think Travis Banks was a little bit ripped off. But we'll get there when we get there. We start with Pete Dunne coming out to address the crowd. He's still the champion, Roddy Roddy Raw. Now this is a little bit bittersweet for me, because as you guys all know, I went to the Destiny Carnage show this past Sunday, and after a fucking phenomenal match with Josh Alexander, Pete Dunne is now officially our former Destiny World Champion, because the interim champion, Josh Alexander, took his title, and that's just how things go. Incidentally, if you want to see some highlights from that show, I mean, granted, it's just an indie show that I happen to be at, go back to videos. You can check out the not only the highlights and videos, etc., but also a couple of my quick thoughts about that show. It was really, really fucking good. So you got Pete Dunne out there being all triumphant because he just defended his title, but in my little tiny brain, the most recent thing I saw him do was lose a title. So again, love the guy, a little bit bittersweet, but he basically comes out with a pretty generic babyface victory speech with the whole, you know, 2 years ago, or sorry, last 2 weeks ago, we made history with our first takeover event, but 2 years ago, this whole brand started in Blackpool, and since May of 2017 in Chicago, I've been your WWE UK champ. Should be NXT UK champ, but that's not my hill to die on. And he's about to say that, you know, it's going to be me going on forward or whatever, but he's interrupted by Gallus, and Joe Coffey basically comes out, does the typical loser heel thing, and says TakeOver doesn't change anything. He's almost drowned out by the "you tapped out" chants, which is great. This is still very much my kingdom, and in a losing battle, I made plans to win the war. That title that you have held on to for more than 600 days will be mine, so you can enjoy it while you can, and everybody else that thinks they deserve a shot at your title can get to the back of the line behind me. And here once again is where I take my personal views, and it sort of ruins the show for me a little bit, because the lights go dark and I'm thinking, okay, this was filmed around the time that they did TakeOver. The lights go out. I was like, okay, they've got Finn Balor there for TakeOver. Wouldn't it be awesome if we saw Finn Balor versus Pete Dunne for a laugh? Now, this is because I haven't read the spoilers, obviously, but I'm thinking, okay, once in a blue moon, I might get something right. It might be Finn Balor. We know he's there, sitting in the back of your head type thing. Much like at TakeOver, when the lights went out, I thought they were going to introduce Aleister Black, because during the very first NXT during the very first WWE UK tournament, Aleister Black, then known as Tommy N, did make a surprise appearance for a random match in the in-between. So if you want to talk about like your beginning to now, that would have been cool. I was wrong. We had Finn Balor at the pay-per-view. I thought he would be here tonight. I was wrong again. I shouldn't guess anything. I shouldn't even be in my own pay-per-view pick 'em later on tonight, should I? But ultimately, as I ramble on, it was Walter that comes down and just makes his presence known. The dude's fucking huge. I said before in other videos, and I'll say it again now, any of you who are more familiar with this guy than I am, please tell me where and what I should go check out, because this guy just looks like he could punch a hole in a building. Anyways, the other members of Gallus try to hold Joe Coffey back while he's attempting to get at Walter, who booted him after the title match at the pay-per-view. But Gallus pretend to leave more you tapped out chants. They come back, but they're quickly chased off and tossed out by Pete Dunne, and you get this really intense stare down between Walter and Pete Dunne. But it's not really a stare down between Walter and Pete Dunne. It's Walter staring straight down at the ground at the belt, and Pete Dunne staring right at him, and there's nothing is said, nothing is done. It's a moment that just sits, and it's one of those, I hate to be cliche, but it's one of those less is more type things, and it's really good. And Walter towers over Pete Dunne, and I'm sure they're going to do something. I'm sure maybe this will be at the NXT UK TakeOver before WrestleMania. But this is something I'm already looking forward to, and neither one of them had to say a fucking word. It's great. In the back, we see Sid Scala, the assistant to Johnny Saint, and he's talking about the Worlds Collide tournament, which I mentioned in my NXT review. Basically, for those of you that don't know, during Royal Rumble Access, they're doing this mini tournament between the superstars of NXT, NXT UK, and 205 Live. The winner of the entire tournament gets to go and have a shot at the title of their choosing. Now, I don't know whether they're going to use that to move people around those three brands or not, but it's an interesting concept if nothing else. Apparently it is being televised, but it's potentially being televised at a later date, and that part of it I don't understand. He also mentions that while they're at Access, they're going to be filming 3 episodes of NXT UK. So surely for those 3 episodes, it's NXT US, is it not? Then in the background, you see Gibson and Drake come along, the brand new NXT UK Tag Team Champions, and Sid Scala tries to congratulate them and ask them if they have any thoughts and whatever. And basically, I mean, they're the bad guys, but you can't blame them for their response here. Their response is, oh, you want to talk to us now? You know, leading up to the pay-per-view, you guys had all your chips on Mustache Mountain. You wanted to talk to nothing but them. Now you want to talk to us, you know, basically telling them to fuck off without telling them to fuck off. And they say, you know, what we have to say, we're going to say in our Champions Address next week. Now, this might be a silly thing for me to say. It might be a little nitpicky, positive thing for me to say here, but I love, now that we're caught up and we're back to 1 episode a week, I love that when I hear somebody on my television say, hey, next week, it's actually happening next week, not 45 minutes from now in TV time. So that's good. I like these guys as a team. We move on, and there's the other 2 matches. I mean, the main event is great, because the main event is Jordan Devlin versus Travis Banks. The match we didn't get at the pay-per-view, which, again, is a little shady. The other 2 matches, and I'm going to go through them, but they are basically filler. They really are, and it's no disrespect to the people in the ring, but it's just, there's not very much fire, if that makes sense. Nina Samuels takes on Lana Austin. Lana Austin, I've never heard before. Hearing the UK crowd chant for her, sounds like they're saying Lana, which makes me think of Rusev's Lana, and I just like that Lana is never going to get chanted like that, other than the Lana Day thing, which is more or less for her husband. But they go into a great amount of detail on commentary about how Lana Austin is a mother of 3 children, and, you know, she's trying to inspire her. She had her first child at 18. She's trying to inspire her children to show them they can do anything they want to do. So she's living out her dream as a wrestler. Rah, the feel-good shtick, but, you know, the feel-good shtick feels good for a reason. But anyways, collar and elbow type, and Nina works the arm with a trip and a hip toss, uppercut and a snapmare and a low drop kick by Lana, corner uppercut by Lana, boot by Nina and a drop kick, head and arm lock by Nina and a seated blockbuster, basically rolling over the top of her while she's sitting. Sort of the way Natalya does that run up the back drop kick, but in blockbuster form. Leg sweep by Lana and a series of lariats and an uppercut. A high knee and a discus forearm by Lana, and then she eats the turnbuckle, and there's your turning point, because she's had her arm worked on most of the match. She eats the turnbuckle, and that's enough to sort of, you know, make her shake her shoulder out. But Nina Samuels hits the prima donna, which is a Death Valley driver over the knee, which Nigel McGuinness on commentary tries to tell us is a version of a neck breaker. I don't think a Death Valley driver over the knee counts as a neck breaker whatsoever. It's just not my week this week as far as interruptions and technological misadvances. We go to a highlight package of the Grizzled Young Vets winning the NXT UK tag titles for the first time. We see a backstage interview with Mustache Mountain, who are basically giving us the you know, we're down but we're not out, this is what makes us who we are. It's all good. We find out later on what they're going to be doing next, but I find it really funny, and it happened in the regular NXT last year, is every time they lose a match, Trent Seven apologizes to Tyler Bate. Now, it's cool in a sense because Trent Seven is the mentor, Tyler Bate's the student, and he feels this constant need to be the example for his protege, but you don't need to apologize every time you lose a match. You can be pissed and whatever, but they said, yeah, the person doing the interview saying, you know, that match pretty much had everything, and Trent Seven's like, nah, it didn't have everything. It didn't have us becoming the inaugural champions, so no, it didn't. But the goal doesn't change. We're going to be tag team champions eventually. We've had tag team gold before. Rah. Now, technically, that was the NXT tag team titles that they won off Undisputed Era and then lost again. But the point still holds up a little bit. Toni Storm backstage talking about her win, talking about how much it means to her, talking about how she changed after the Mae Young Classic, and how NXT UK is a brand that she chose. She could have gone for the Raw, SmackDown, or NXT Women's title, but NXT UK deserves a champion they can be proud of. I love Toni Storm because she's in the stage in her career, I think, where she's still marking out for the lucky position that she's in, and there's nothing wrong with that. There really, really isn't. Next up, we had Eddie Dennis versus Jamie Ahmed. And Jamie Ahmed is the jobber from several weeks ago who also has the nickname Screwface, which is troublesome at best, especially when Nigel McGuinness on commentary keeps referring to him as Screwface. Eddie Dennis and Dave Mastiff beat the shit out of each other at TakeOver Blackpool, and that's a thing. And they used this match as an opportunity just to let the commentators talk about that. But the match really wasn't much of anything. Like I say, they beat the crap out of each other. Second rope suplex and an elevated reverse DDT get Eddie Dennis the win. It's not as I keep saying the same thing, it's not a knock on the guys, but this match wasn't anything to write home about. Then we get the Twitter on TV telling us that next week Mustache Mountain is going to take on Marcel Barthel and Fabian Eichner. Now, Fabian Eichner and Marcel Barthel, if you watched my NXT review last night, you'll know that I think they look pretty plain, and they have the advantage, much like Lorcan and Birch, they have the advantage of looking pretty plain and not looking like much at first if you've never seen them, and then winning you over throughout the match. I think it's not necessarily a unique thing, because somebody that doesn't necessarily know, like a Sami Zayn, and I'm going to talk about Sami Zayn because I think Travis Banks in the main event, his character, it kind of reminds me of like a UK version of Sami Zayn. But Sami Zayn, if you just looked at him, he looks like a pretty plain dude, and he sort of talks like a, you know, happy-go-lucky, happy to be there dude, but then you see what he can do in the ring, and it's fucking fantastic. I think Barthel and Fabian, relatively young in their team and in their presence in the WWE, have that ability where they can come in purposely and not seem like much at first, and then win you over throughout the match. And if you can go through that in-ring story a couple of times, you will get people behind you, and it will be organic, and it's really, really good. Their match on NXT last night was fucking fantastic. Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan really, really helped them elevate their game as a team. But if you want my thoughts on that, go back to the video I did last night. Jordan Devlin versus Travis Banks, the match we were supposed to get at the pay-per-view, is our main event for tonight. Banks rushes the ring before Devlin can even get his wits about him. Forearms by both men. Banks tosses Devlin out and hits him with a suicide dive, tosses him out of the other side, the far side of the ring, hits him with another suicide dive. They brawl in the crowd, and he basically gives him a stiff kick out of the crowd, over the barrier, and back to the ringside area. He hits a Fez press off of the guardrail and hitting him up with mounted punches, almost Austin style. Chop block by Devlin cuts off all that aggression, and he double stomps. Banks recovers and hits him with a double stomp, still on the outside. Banks, even though I just said he reminds me of Sami Zayn, that didn't stop him from hitting some Daniel Bryan silly kicks. Oh yes, and then a super kick. So you got the silly kicks, you got the super kick, and then you got a backstabber by Devlin that cuts off his momentum once again. Right hands by Devlin and a choke on the ropes. Backbreaker by Devlin, body shots by Banks. Moonsault by Devlin and a modified abdominal stretch. Body shots by Banks and a hard as fuck Irish whip by the Irishman, Jordan Devlin. I always wanted to say that. That's something that JR used to say all the time. An Irish whip by the Irishman. Or conversely, an Irish whip, even though he's not Irish. So I finally managed to stick it into a video. There we go. Seated surfboard stretch by Devlin, and they trade some shots on the apron. Devlin pushes Banks back first into the post, follows up by hitting him with a Spanish fly off the apron to the floor. Nice spot. Jordan Devlin has this unique ability to, like, he can be a high flyer, but he manages to fight like 90% of his match as a brawler to make you forget that he's a high flyer, and then he pulls out something like the Spanish fly off the apron, which is really good. Devlin tosses Banks into the rails on the outside, a running Spanish fly on Devlin once again, but a lariat by Banks, headbutts by Devlin and a forearm by Banks, suplex by Devlin, and a corner drop kick by Banks. Now, here's where these guys pulled off something absolutely fucking phenomenal. As they get to their feet, each one of them is holding the other one, like each one is leaning their head on the other one's shoulder. They're basically supporting each other as they both try to stand up. Banks gets Devlin barely up to his feet and tries to go for a top rope. I'm just going to say a top rope something because I don't know what he was going for. He misses whatever it is, but not because Devlin like ducks him or dekes him out of the way, just because Devlin collapses and he flies over him. So Devlin sort of wins by falling down, and then Devlin tries to get back to his feet and hit him with the Irish call, the Ireland's call, which is that over the shoulder maneuver that he does, and they both just collapse completely dead outside the ring, and they barely start stirring as the referee makes it to his 10 count. But both of them in succession, and this is fucking gorgeous because they're dead. They are the walking wounded. They are barely moving. But the minute the two of them realize that they've both been counted out, neither one has won. Nothing has been rectified. Nothing has been settled. It's like a jolt goes through both of them. They're both on their feet again. They brawl at ringside. They brawl right over the rails into an open spot in the crowd. They're brawling on the concrete, and the referees trying to separate that brawl in the crowd is how the show goes off the air. So the fact that these guys absolutely wipe themselves out to the point where neither one of them can move, but the fact that the match ended in a count out pissed them both off enough that they got that second adrenaline boost. The way this match sort of died, came back, and died again just because by virtue of the fact that the show was over was absolutely brilliant. And anybody writing for any show, I don't care whether it's New Japan, ROH, Impact, Raw, SmackDown, NXT proper, my guys at Destiny, if you want to have a screwjob finish that works, go back and watch this match. And also, as I said at the beginning of the video, all due respect to Finn Balor. I'm a huge fan. I hope he takes out Brock on Sunday. This match should have happened at TakeOver. Great way to bring NXT UK back onto my TV. We're back to once a week. This was a fucking fantastic show. We've already got some stuff to look forward to for next week. It is all good. Guys, stay tuned later on tonight. The Rumble Pick'em. It's going to be a lot of fun. I will talk to you guys later, but for right now, I've been Spaz, your YWC Reality Check. Subscribe up there. Talk down there. Start a conversation. Keep all of these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I will talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, I am tagging out. Bye, guys.
Freak like me.